Hello everyone, my name is Laura, this is my channel Laura's Little Library, and welcome to today's video, which is a if you like this, then you should read this recommendations. So this is a video I've done literally once before in my entire YouTube career, which is like over 5 years long, but I have been drumming up this video for quite a while. It's been sitting in my brainstorm. It's kind of crazy, so we're just gonna dive into my recommendations for some books that I've read recently that I've loved and reminded me of other books, so let's go. First thing, we're gonna start off with a more horror-esque, or really it's thriller recommendation. So if you liked The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, if you liked this one where you have a bunch of characters who have been the final girl in their slasher situation, then I would suggest that you read The Mary Shelley Club. So The Mary Shelley Club, also, I want to quick mention as I'm getting into this, if you haven't read the first book, book A, but you have read book B, it works the same vice versa, okay? So The Mary Shelley Club is about this new student who goes to this new school, and they do something that is like kind of not quite messed up, but a little bit, and they are discovered by the Mary Shelley Club, which is a club that really loves horror movies, thriller things, all those kinds of dark things. And then all of a sudden somebody starts targeting their group. So it's kind of like this one where you have a group of misfits who are involved, whether actively or unintentionally, on creepy thriller slasher things, and they are both being targeted to have the final one of the group of final ones, or misfits who like horror thriller things. So definitely the same kind of dark, it's a little more academia vibes because you have some younger characters, but I just thought the plots are, the ideas behind it are similar, but they're two very different books, but the same vibes. And then this one is not thriller or horror by any means, but if you've read the Finlay Donovan is Killing It series by El Casimano, so it's murder, but it's light and fluffy rather than deep and serious, kind of like Dial A for Aunties. But if you liked Finlay Donovan is Killing It, or those series, then you should read The Bandit Queens by Birani Shroff, and this takes place in, I believe it's India, and you've got your main character who, her husband disappears. And so everybody believes that she kind of offed her husband a little bit. And so all these other wives with terrible husband go to her and say, do to my husband what you did to your husband. So it's the same misconceptions of Finlay Donovan is Killing It. She is under suspicion for these bodies coming up, and she's trying to figure out who actually did it while kind of being paid to take out people without actually taking people out. It's the same idea of this kind of lonely, she's not a spinster just because she did have a husband, is being asked and being rewarded to take out these women's husbands, but she never actually did anything in the first place. Or did she? Definitely recommend this one if you've read El Casimano. This next one might take a little bit of a brain power, but it's connected it's more of a dark academia vein, but also it's not super dark. So if you liked, bear with me, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, which is academia. It's not dark, it's actually quite light and whimsical with a slow burn romance. If you liked this and you are okay with something kind of darker, more like dark academia, then I would read A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. You have the same idea of there is this mystical thing that everybody is obsessed with and is like the thing. Here it's fairies, here it's a specific writer, and our female main character in this one is not allowed to be a literature student, so she is an architecture student, and then she ends up applying for like some sort of scholarship or program that allows her to do an architectural project on this writer's house, and so she decides that she is going to take this opportunity because it's the closest she can get to studying this famous author and being a literature student without being a literature student. And there is male interest, but it is quite spooky. I mean, it's not quite spooky, but it's dark academia versus this is light and whimsical. So I believe that this is just the younger, like, preparatory school setting instead of college setting, with a younger main character in a slightly darker setting with literature rather than traveling around with fairies. Now we are going to shift on over into the fantasy recommendations. So if you liked Once Upon a Broken Heart, this series by Stephanie Garber. If you liked this series or even Caraval or anything like that, but specifically Once Upon a Broken Heart, I think you should read One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, because this book features a lot with like a deck of cards as magic, because you have Jax and the character Jax, and just the magic system resembles this, but this is much darker, I would say, because here too you have a deck of cards that have certain abilities per card, but wielding them for too long and too strongly can have consequences, and there's other magic at play in this as well. For example, our main character actually survived an illness, and now she's got like this something whispering dark things in her head. So I think this, again, is just a darker version of this, with both having kind of deck of cards themed magic, or even tarot card themed magic if you prefer. So if you have not yet read this, I would highly recommend this duology if you liked this trilogy. Now we're going to slightly shift gears into cozy fantasy. So if you liked one book that really sparked the whole cozy fantasy phase here on YouTube, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, which this follows an orc who was an adventurer, and she has decided that she's going to settle down and start up a coffee shop, which coffee lattes is not something that was really heard of in this magical D&D world until this book, in theory. It is so cute and so romantic, and just romantic in terms of its cozy fantasy, not like it's a romance, but I mean, it kind of is. But anyway, if you liked this book, then I would recommend reading Can't Spell Treason Without T. It is a similar fantasy world setting, similar like D&D-esque fantasy world setting, and you have the captain of the Queen's Guard who wants to settle down with her girlfriend, who is the Queen's most powerful maid, and they really want to just settle down, open up a bookstore, and serve tea at their little bookstore. But you know, challenges arise, just like challenges arise in this one, but there's both still very fun cozy fantasy set in D&D-esque worlds. And if you're unfamiliar, Dungeons and Dragons, it's just like, you know, orcs and wizards and mages and all that fun stuff. So definitely, if you read this and enjoyed it, give Can't Spell Treason Without T a try. The other cozy fantasy recommendation I have for you is if you read and enjoyed The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, where we follow a main character who is a librarian, and her sidekick is like this adorable talking spider plant named Kaz, and they end up going to the island that she was originally raised on with her parents, brushing off her parents' old house and opening up this adorable jam shop. If you liked this book, I would recommend reading The Honey Witch, and this is by Sydney J. Shields. So this follows a girl who is looked on to be a little more wild. She just loves being outside and being in nature, and her grandmother decides to start training her as the next honey witch. And so she goes to her grandmother's island and learns how to take care of the bees and the beehives and making various honeys and things like that for home remedies and magic, and she becomes the Honey Witch. So they're very similar in terms of atmosphere. They're both on an island, very nature-based. She makes jam with spells from the books from her library, and she makes honeys for spells with the knowledge from her grandmother. So both sound very similar. They do read a little different, because in this book you also have somebody who visits the Honey Witch but doesn't believe that magic is real. So she goes on a mission to prove that magic is real, versus in the spell shop she is trying to hide the fact that she has magic books because it's not technically legal, but the library burned down and all she wanted to do was save the books. So two very cozy, very nature-based cozy fantasies, like very lighthearted fantasies. So I would definitely recommend both of these if you have not read one or both. So you should definitely read these. And then I do have one kind of contemporary, more romance recommendation. So you hear me talk about Lyssa Kay Adams's The Bromance Book Club all the time. I recommend it almost every year on Valentine's Day. I keep telling myself I'm not going to do that anymore, but then more books come out, or I just can't help it, and I recommend this all the time. So if you have not heard me talk about it, too bad. You can click on one of my other videos. But if you have also read this and liked this, then I would recommend reading The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. So the Bromance Book Club books 1 and 4 specifically center around athletes, and that's why I'm holding up book 1 specifically. And The Cheat Sheet is also a sports romance. But what really does it for me is the fact that both of these books do so well with team dynamics. Having the players on the team, having like a small group of them, not 1 or 2, but like a small group of them who gather in support of the male character or the male main love interest, whatever. And the fact that they like come up with plans together and they do things to help them in their romantic life. This one, he is winning back his wife who wants to divorce him, and this one, he is trying to figure out how to get his best friend to be his girlfriend, and they are just both so sweet, so cute. I love the romance in both of these, and with the similar team dynamics, it just made sense that if you read this one, probably really like this one. Also, both authors are, like, Sarah Adams is an auto-buy author. I've loved all of her romances that I've read so far, and I keep planning to read them as she comes out with more. And Lyssa Kay Adams, I'm only familiar with her Bromance Book Club books, but if something else continues to come out in this series, it will be an auto-buy and immediate reads for both of these authors. So there you go. Now for the finale. The finale for this video is something a little bit special and different from the rest of these recommendations. So I would say, and hear me out because I haven't read one of these books, but it's a 3-way. If you read Onyx Storm, and you liked it, or you're invested in the Fourth Wing series, like I am. So if you read Onyx Storm and you liked it, and you also read Babel by R.F. Kuang and liked it, which this is like my favorite book of all time so far. So this is a language-based dark academia with magic within translation. It's also historical. So if you liked this, and you like epic dragon war stories, then I would recommend A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. I have not actually read this book yet. It just came out this past January, but it is one I do plan on getting to quite soon. And it seems to be the perfect merriment of Onyx Storm and Babel, because in this book it is historical, and you have your main character who it seems like they're about to go to war with dragons. So you have the war and you have the dragons, but she becomes a code breaker, which basically means she is learning the language of dragons in order to break their codes. I mean, come on. Hi. Does it not seem like the perfect marriage between those two books? You have the historical and linguistic element of Babel, as well as the dragon and war elements of Onyx Storm. I am so incredibly excited to read this. I cannot express that to you enough. So I'm going out on a limb, and I'm recommending this based on those two books, even though I haven't read it, but maybe we can read it together. And Donatella had to say hi, especially because I recommended a book by Stephanie Garber. And you're named after one of her characters. How fun is that, huh? Thank you all very much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you have any recommendations based on the books that I recommended in this video, or if there are specific genres or tropes that you want me to do more. If you like this, then read this. Recommendations with those specific tropes or authors or genres, whatever, let me know in the comments below. While you're down there, feel free to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified, as I am posting videos every week. And I also have Bookish social media linked in the description below, so you can go ahead and follow me on my Bookstagram and Goodreads and all of that fun stuff. So keep up with what I'm reading by going down there. And again, thank you all very much for watching this video, and until I see you in the next one, I wish you happy reading.